Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to explain about the process involved in the operator precedence parsing with the help of an example grammar. So as you all know that the operator precedence parsing is for all the operator grammar, that is for all the arithmetic expressions. So let us consider an operator grammar. So I have taken this set of grammar and as you can see, none of the production in this has two non-terminals continuous. So you have to take such a grammar. I'm considering this grammar. So the first thing is we are going to compute the leading and trailing values for the given production. Why we have to find this leading and trailing are to find the precedence of every operator which is involved in this grammar. Okay, first of all, let us look at the leading. What is mean by leading? As the name says, it's going to focus on the first element in the RHS of every production. So there are some rules for it. So when you're going to find the first value of it, your production could be in any one of this format. Suppose your production might be like this: small a capital B. So in this case, the first element in the RHS is a terminal symbol. So this is very simple. So if this is the case, then lead of A is that terminal only. Okay. Otherwise, if you have a production in this format, that is A tends to some non-terminal was the first element, and then followed by a terminal, and then followed by the another non-terminal. So in this case, the lead of A is, you have to include the first element lead of Y, comma. Also, you can include the following terminal symbol. Okay. And then the third possibility is you have a production where the first value is a non-terminal and followed by a non-terminal. So in this case, what we have to do, I'm sorry. So there is a only a non-terminal which doesn't have any following element. So here what you have to write, the lead of A is lead of B. You have to find the lead of B and then you have to substitute. So these are the three rules. Now let us calculate the leading values for the given production. So first of all, so the lead of capital E. So what is lead of capital E? So E has two productions. In the first production, so there is a non-terminal, right? So the lead of capital E is lead of the first element, comma. Since it has a following terminal symbol, you can include that also, comma. And then what about the second production? The second production has E tends to T. That is also a non-terminal, so it should be written as lead of capital T. So lead of E and lead of E, it has no meaning. So you have to find, so plus will be there and you have to find lead of capital T. Okay. So let us find the lead of capital T. What is that? It also has two productions. In the first thing it has, it starts with a T star F. So it starts with a non-terminal. So include that lead of capital T, comma. Since it follows, it is followed by a terminal, include that also. And then you have one more production, T tends to F. So here this satisfies rule number 3. So lead of T is lead of F. We have to include lead of F. Now again, lead of T equals to lead of T, it is of meaningless. So it is star comma lead of F. So let us find lead of F. What is lead of F? If it is a first element is a terminal symbol, you can include as such, comma, and then you have one more production, F tends to ID, that is also a terminal. So you have to include that's okay. So lead of F is identified. Now you have to substitute here. So the lead of capital T becomes star open bracket and ID. Okay. And substituting lead of T, we get a lead of E as plus star open bracket and ID. So thus we have computed the lead values for the given production. So let us calculate the trailing value. So leading is computed. Next, moving on to trailing. So in trailing also, we have three rules. The same thing, like the same what we have seen over here. There can be three possibility of production. Okay. So what it could be? That is trailing value means you have to look at the last element in the RHS of your production. So the first possibility is the last element could be a terminal symbol like B and small a. So here the last element, the trailing value is a terminal symbol. So simply you can write the trail of A is small a. What is the other possibility? A production, there can be a production having only one non-terminal. That's it. There is no following element or before element. So the trailing element is a non-terminal. So in this case, you have to find the trail of capital B. So trail of A equal to trail of B. Okay. What is the other possibility? So the other possibility is A tends to some beta X and capital Y. So the trailing element is a non-terminal, but it has a terminal symbol before that. So in that case, the trail of A is, you have to include that terminal as also. So you have to include yes along with that the trail of Y. Okay. So this is your rules for the computation of trailing. Now let us find out the trailing value for our grammar. So first thing is trail of capital T. So capital E. So what do you have for capital E? We have two productions and in the first production, the last element is a non-terminal, but before that you have a terminal. So what you have to do? You have to include the terminal as well as that trail of T. Okay, and you have one more production, that is E tends to T. So this is something like your rule number 2, right? So what is the trail of, as per the second production, trail of E is trail of T, so which is already written. So now we have to find out trail of T. So what is trail of T? It has two productions. In the first production, the trailing element is capital F. It's a non-terminal. And before that, you could find the terminal symbol. So include the terminal as well as that trailing element, that is capital F. Now you have to find trail of F. So trail of F is, F also has two productions. In the first production, what is the trailing element? The closing bracket is the trailing element. Since it is the terminal, you'll write it is like your first rule. So you can include that closing bracket as such. And then the next production, F tends to ID. Only one terminal symbol, just include it as such. Now substituting the trail of F and trail of T. So the trail of T is star closing bracket and ID. Okay, now substituting the trail of T for E, get trail of E is plus star closing bracket and ID. So thus we have computed the lead and trail for all the variables in the given grammar. Next thing is we have to derive the operator precedence table. So we have calculated all these values, and now based on the 5 important rules we are going to include, or we are going to construct the operator precedence table. So let us draw the table, draw the structure of the table. Operator precedence table. It will have all the terminal symbols as a row and the column. So it has plus, star, open bracket, closing bracket. We have ID. Also, we have the dollar symbol. So in column also, please include these terminals. Plus, star, open bracket, closing bracket, ID and dollar. So when we are creating the precedence, we will have only 3 possibilities. One is it will have a lesser precedence, a variable, sorry, not variable, a terminal is having lesser precedence over the other terminal symbol. Otherwise, greater precedence, or there can be an equal precedence. Now we are going to identify what kind of relationship is existing among any two terminal symbols, or for a pair of terminals. What is the relationship between them, that we are going to identify based on the rules which we will see now. And once we derive that, we can fill the values for this operator precedence table. Okay. So what are those rules? We have 5 rules in it. So the very first rule is for the starting symbol. Okay, for the starting symbol of the production. Say for example, if the starting symbol is capital S, then for all the values in lead of S, okay, for all the values in lead of S, for all the values, say for example, the values are mentioned as small a. So for all the values small a in lead of S, the relationship will be dollar less than that set of values. This is the first relationship. And the second relationship is for all the values B. Say for example, for all the values B in trail of S. Okay. For all the values B in trail of S, the relationship is B. B contains the set of trail values of that variable. So B is greater than dollar. So this is your first rule. So as per your um, example, for our example, let us write the lead and trail values. So what is the starting symbol? Capital E is the starting symbol for our example. So we just have to find out what is the lead and trail values of capital E. Already we have identified, right? So the lead values of the capital E are, you can refer the previous page. We have calculated the lead and trial for all the values. So for lead of E, it is plus star open bracket and ID. So the elements are plus star open bracket and ID. What is the condition? It is for all the lead values. The condition is dollar less than all those values. So dollar less than relationship. Okay, so this is a relationship which we have identified, as well as now check the trial values of E. So the trial values of E includes plus star, closing bracket and ID, and the rule is all the set of values having greater precedence to dollar. So the precedence is represented in this way, greater than and a dot. So it is having greater precedence to dollar. Okay, so this is the first rule, and we have arrived at these relationships. Now we have to enter these relationship in our table. So first, for the dollar, so this side it represents the row value. The left hand side represents the row value, and the right hand side represents a column value. So which means the row in dollar, it has lesser precedence to all the terminal symbols. That's the first condition. So check the row in dollar. So this one having a lesser precedence to plus, having lesser precedence to star, having lesser precedence to open bracket, and lesser precedence to ID. Okay, so this is the first thing which we have identified. And just check the second thing is all the variables. So this is your row value and this is your column value. For all the variables, for all the terminal symbols, they are having greater precedence over dollar. So how do we write? So plus is having greater precedence over dollar. Star is having all the terminals are having greater precedence over dollar. Closing bracket is having greater precedence over dollar. And then ID is having greater precedence over dollar. Okay, thus we have filled this. Let us move on to the second rule. So the second rule says if your production, if you have a production in this format, that is A tends to XY. So which means two continuous terminal symbols. Okay, so here X and Y are terminal symbols. So A tends to XY. Then these two terminal symbols will have equal precedence, X equal to Y. Okay. So when we looked at our production, so these are our production rules, and we can clearly see that we don't have any production having two continuous terminal symbols. So this rule will not be applicable for our production. Okay, we'll move on to the third rule. So the third rule says if you have a production in this format, that is A tends to small x, capital B, small y. So here again x and y are terminals. Okay, so what is the relationship? So two terminals are separated by a non-terminal. If you have any production in this format, then for that also they both x and y are having equal precedence. So when you look at our example, one of the production is having something like this. So F tends to bracket E. What is the meaning of this? So open bracket and closing bracket are terminals and capital E is a non-terminal. So we have in this format, so open bracket is having equal precedence over closing bracket. This is what we have identified. Okay. So this you have to check in row. LHS left hand side you have to check the row value and the right hand side represents your column value. So open bracket is having equal precedence with closing bracket. So open bracket having equal precedence over closing bracket, but not the other way. Okay, you should not check in that way. So let us move on to the fourth rule. Next rule, that is the fourth rule. So the fourth rule says if you have a production in this format, that is A tends to alpha, X, capital B, and then beta. So in this format, you could see that there is a terminal followed by a non-terminal. A terminal followed by a non-terminal. Then the rule is for all, that is for all a, the set of values in that variable, that is lead of capital B, for all that values, the condition is x having lesser precedence over a. Okay? X is having lesser precedence over a. So now let us equate this for our production. So when we look at our production, we have in three places we can find this kind of production, that is a terminal followed by a non-terminal. Say for example, E tends to E plus T tends to T star F was there, and also F tends to, in these three productions bracket E, you can find see a terminal followed by non-terminal. Here also terminal followed by non-terminal. Here also terminal followed by non-terminal. So this rule is applicable for these productions. So what is the condition? So for all the lead of B, so you have to find the lead value of mm, that non-terminal. Okay. So what is the lead value of capital T? The lead value of capital T is star open bracket and ID. So this terminal is having, as per the rule, the terminal is having lesser precedence over all these values. So the terminal is having lesser precedence. Terminal is having lesser precedence over this value. Terminal is having lesser precedence over this value. Similarly, we have to find what is the lead of capital F. What is lead of capital F? It includes open bracket and ID. And what is the operator over here? Star. That is the x value equivalent here is star. So star is having lesser precedence over this. Star is having lesser precedence over ID. Similarly, now we have to find the lead of capital E for this. So the lead of capital E is plus star open bracket and ID, and the operator, the terminal over here is open bracket. So open bracket having lesser precedence over this thing, open bracket having lesser precedence over star, open bracket having lesser precedence over bracket, open bracket, open bracket is having lesser precedence over ID. Okay. Now we can fill up these details in the table. So what is the first one? The plus operator. So you have to be very clear about the row value. So this is your row value and this is the column value. Similarly, this is your, for these relationship, this is the row and this is the column value. And for these relationship, this side, the left side is the row and right side is the column value. Now we can enter these values in the table. So first of all, plus is having lesser relationship with star, open bracket and ID. Plus having lesser relationship with star, open bracket and ID. And then star is having lesser relationship with open bracket. For the second production, star is having lesser relationship with open bracket and ID. And finally, open bracket having lesser relationship with star plus star open bracket and ID. Okay. So thus we have filled the answers for these rules. The last rule, the final rule is, if suppose you have a production of this format, A tends to alpha, capital B x beta. So it's like a reverse of your fourth production. Okay. So if you have a production in this format, then for all the set of values in trail of that non-terminal, then the relationship is the set of trail values is having greater relationship with the terminal symbol. Okay. So yes, this rule also is applicable for our production. We have the productions like E tends to E plus T, and then T tends to T plus T star F, F tends to bracket E. They all are satisfying this criteria, that is a non-terminal followed by a terminal. So here non-terminal followed by terminal. Here also non-terminal followed by terminal. Non-terminal followed by terminal. We need to find out the trailing value of that non-terminal. Say for the first example, the trailing values of the non-terminals are non-terminal capital E is plus star closing bracket and ID. Okay, that is having greater relationship with the terminal symbol. Here it is plus. The terminal is plus over here. Okay, and then here the trail of T you need to find out. The trail of T includes star closing bracket ID. So you need to set all these operators having, all these terminals having greater precedence over the terminal star. Okay, and finally here for this we need to find the trail of capital E, which includes star plus closing bracket and ID. So all these things are having greater precedence over the operator. Now we need to fill up all these things in the table. So plus star, all these things are having greater precedence over plus. Closing bracket also having greater precedence. ID also having. And then plus open closing bracket ID, they are having greater precedence over star. Closing bracket and ID are having greater precedence. Then star plus they are having greater precedence over bracket. Plus star closing bracket and then ID they are having greater precedence over closing brackets. Okay, so as per the 5 rules we have derived this table. And one more thing is the dollar and dollar, it is called as the accepting state. Okay, and a few of the places you are having empty spaces, they represents the error condition. You don't have any relationship for that pair. Say for example ID and open bracket, you don't have any pair, so they represents the error condition. So thus we have derived the operator precedence table based on the rules. Okay, thank you.